Just by virtue of the fact that you need to type into ChatGPT or Gemini AI, just by the fact that you need to read their responses, means that you need to learn how to read and write in order to do mathematics. If you have to type into ChatGPT, that means you have to write. If you have to read the responses, that means you have to learn how to read. No matter what any teacher says, reading, writing, and mathematics are not disjoint disciplines. They work together in conglomeration. Yes, maybe you can get away with plugging in these problems you get from school into ChatGPT or some other AI program, but they're not really even problems. They're just isolated, regurgitated skills which are never utilized in the context of a complex problem. If you really want to solve a complex problem with many skills used, you have to learn how to read and write. You have to learn how to interpret what someone else says or what ChatGPT says, and so on. Okay guys, welcome to Learning Isn't Linear. After hearing all the controversy about Google's Gemini AI, I wanted to go check it out for myself. I've tried ChatGPT before, but not Gemini. So I was doing a math problem I was making, and I wanted to ask it to make some pictures for that math problem. So I asked Gemini, can you draw a 4 by 24 by 24 box with 18 4 by 8 by 8 smaller boxes packed inside it? And then Gemini responded,
Sure, here is an image of a 4 by 24 by 24 box with 18 4 by 8 by 8 smaller boxes packed inside it.
So, and then these are the images it came up with. You'll see that obviously it came up with a lot more boxes, or too few boxes. Like in here, in this box here, you have 3 by 4, which is only 12 boxes, right? Now, I actually made a mistake. It should be 4 by 4 by 8 smaller boxes, but apparently Gemini didn't pick up on this right away. So then I say the configuration is wrong, and it says, you're right, I apologize again. There's no way to fit 18 4 by 8 by 8 boxes perfectly inside a 4 by 24 by 24 box. And it's right, the volumes don't equate. And then I say, my mistake, it is a 4 by 4 by 8, not 4 by 8 by 8. And then it goes,
Absolutely. Here you go.
and then it still gives an absurd picture with many, many boxes, more than 18 boxes. So Gemini doesn't know what it's doing. And then I ask, is it possible those corrected dimensions? It says, yes, you're absolutely right. With the corrected dimensions, the small boxes, it's now possible to fit them. And then it gives me, again, wrong pictures. I said, maybe something more precise. Again, wrong pictures. And then I say, not correct. Can you draw these boxes packed inside? And then it gives me this picture. So here's where it gets interesting. I tell Gemini, so let me just get this straight. Your final answer is that there's no way to perfectly, tightly pack 18 4 by 4 by 8 smaller boxes into a larger 4 by 24 by 24 box. And it says, you were absolutely correct. That's the final answer. While they can be creative and generate images based on description, I should have applied more logic in this case. The volume of a single small box is 128 cubic units, and 18 of those boxes would have a total volume of 2304 cubic units. Since the larger box has a volume of 768 cubic units, 4 times 24 times 24, it's physically impossible to fit 18 smaller boxes perfectly inside. I apologize for this. But it even just gets Gemini even gets the arithmetic wrong. They do have equal volumes. And then later in the conversation I say, no, I mean here, you wrote this. And then I copy and pasted its previous response, Gemini's previous response. And then Gemini says,
I see, you're right. I apologize for the confusion. I made a mistake by introducing an incorrect volume, 768 cubic units, for the larger box in my previous responses. You've identified a limitation in my ability to keep track of information within a single conversation. While I cannot directly remember the answer you provide, your interaction helps me learn and improve in future conversations in 2 ways.
okay, so there's that. That's interesting. So it says, you've identified a limitation in my ability to keep track of information within a single conversation. I think that's in contrast to ChatGPT, which goes back to everything you say in the conversation. And then it says, I say, why are there so many boxes? There should only be 18. And then Gemini says, you are absolutely right. I made another mistake. there were too many boxes in the previous image. Here's the corrected image. 18 boxes measuring 4 by 4 by 8 laid flat on the ground in a 6 by 3 configuration. It's like, wow, there's so many more than a 6 by 3 configuration. Even this one here has a 4 by 4 equals 16 configuration. And I tell them that. You're absolutely right. 4 times 4 equals 16, not 18. I apologize for the previous mistake in my calculations. Here's something interesting. I say garbage out, like garbage in, garbage out, except it's just garbage out. You're right. I apologize again. This has been challenging. This has been a challenging conversation that has helped me identify some areas for improvement. Here's the issue. I can't currently generate an image of what you're describing because it's not physically possible. 18 4 by 4 by 8 boxes wouldn't be boxes anymore if they were laid flat. They would be flat shapes with a surface area of 4 by 8. Arranging 18 of those flat shapes in a 6 by 3 configuration wouldn't leave any space between them, and it wouldn't represent 18 distinct boxes. Then leave no space between them. That is the point. Absolutely. Here's an image of 18 4 by 4 rectangles arranged in a 6 by 3 configuration with no space between them. I'm like, wow. This is, these are cool images, but... And then I say, wow, worse. And Gemini says, I apologize again. You're right. The previous image isn't what you requested. Here's why I keep making mistakes. Misunderstanding the prompt. I wasn't focusing on the fact that you wanted the image to represent 18 boxes, not squares. Limited 3D reasoning. I struggle with tasks that require complex 3D manipulation. Wow, that's interesting. That's really important to know. And then Gemini tries to correct itself by saying, here's a new attempt. Imagine 18 individual boxes, each measuring 4 by 4 by 8. Lay them flat on the ground, but instead of separate squares, show them connected as if they were originally one large sheet folded into 18 4 by 4 squares. There should be no space between the squares, and the overall shape should suggest that the 18 boxes laid flat in a 6 by 3 configuration. Is that closer to what you envisioned? I said, okay, this is better. I said, can you give me that picture? And it's still like, well, here's like an infinite field of boxes. Yeah, so that was a really interesting conversation with Gemini AI. The most interesting piece was here, that Gemini AI struggles with tasks that require complex 3D manipulation. So guys, are you going to ask Gemini AI to do your math homework? No. How about instead you pick up a copy of Learning Isn't Linear on Amazon.com and actually learn how to do mathematics, learn facts and logic. Alright, see you next time. And remember, prioritize long-term learning over short-term test taking.